I've been trying to make games to sell commercially for over a year now. Throughout that time, I've learned just how long the whole game making process is. So about 3 months ago, I took a step back and decided I'd plan out an entire game from start to finish that I'd be able to release in a short amount of time. And what I ended up with was Frog and Roll. Now I know what you're thinking. Wow, this game looks like it could be the next Stardew Valley. And no, it didn't do very well. But no, it didn't do very well.
What else could I say instead of that?
Instead of Skibidi?
But no, it didn't do very well.
No, it didn't do very well.
No, it didn't do very well.
Fuck you.
So let's talk about what went wrong and what I did about it. If you're an aspiring indie dev, maybe you can get something out of what I learned. And if you just happen to stumble across this video, I don't know, maybe you really like frog videos or something? Maybe there's a life lesson in here somewhere about not giving up or not settling for less or, I don't know, something along those lines. It's a game about a frog, it's not that deep. This is Papa Rainy. It needs a lot of 2D animation. And this is Hamlet. It needs a lot of content. And a lot of research to see if it's even legal. So instead of finishing those games and putting the time, money and effort into just having them flop, I decided I'd put very little time and a lot of thought and love into a little game instead, so I can get rich. Also it could flop. So I decided to plan a game out from start to finish that I could get on Steam in a couple of months. And that's how I ended up with Frog and Roll. Transparency time!
Transparency? In this economy?
I launched the game 2 weeks after I set the Steam page to public, which is a really short amount of time, and I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're planning on releasing a game. But in that 2 weeks, I got about 50 wish lists, only 9,950 away from what people say you should have. So I was doing pretty good for myself. I also didn't market the game. I made a couple of posts on Twitter, but that's about all I did for marketing. I made $129 in the first 2 weeks. And now that the launch sale is over, I haven't sold a single copy. And just to be clear, let me be clear.
Yeah.
I'm telling you these numbers for transparency, and I am extremely grateful to anyone who's bought or even looked at my little game. It means the world that anyone would pay any amount of money for something that I've made. But anyway, none of that is why my game failed. So let's talk about why I'm revamping and adding to Frog and Roll instead of just moving on to my next game. And then I'll talk on what I learned about making a game post-launch. When I released Frog and Roll, I ended up getting a lot of feedback on the Skibidi toilet aspect of the game.
There is no toilet or Skibidi in the game.
So after I released the game, I got a lot of feedback, and I realized that Frog and Roll wasn't actually a game that I was happy with. I was proud to have my game on Steam, and I was proud of it when I released it, but I realized it wasn't as good as it could be. It was a passable, cute little game, but it felt like it lacked content that people had paid for, and I felt like I owed it to the people that had paid that money. So I spent the last 3 or so weeks reworking the game and making a big ol' content update. I originally had a whole section of this video talking about all the things I'd changed and added, but it just kind of felt like an infomercial of me trying to sell you the best mop you'd ever seen. So instead I'm just going to cut it short and say I added a whole bunch of extra content to the game. And if you want to check it out, there'll be a link in the description. I'm hoping that making the game what it should have been at launch and putting it out there a little more with this update will maybe give Frog and Roll the push I should have given it in the first place. And even though this video is the only bit of quote-unquote marketing I've done for Frog and Roll, I think I'm going to treat it like a bit of a post-mortem for the game. If somehow the game picks up speed and gets more sales, I might end up adding more content to the game, but for now I think it's best to just leave it as it is and start working on more games. And while I personally never expected Frog and Roll to sell 1 million copies, I hope my experience has shown the importance of marketing or expectations or something along those lines. What was the point of this video again? Well, that sure was a mess, wasn't it? I'm not very good at making videos, but if you did like whatever this was, consider maybe checking Frog and Roll out on Steam. And if you want to subscribe, there might be devlogs that were better thought out in the future. But regardless, thank you so much for watching my dumb little video, and I hope you have an amazing day.